Moving on to the AFC, and we're starting in the North. The Ravens, Bengals, Browns, Steelers grading the 2025 NFL Draft, and the Ravens got a new kicker, among other things. Coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Love our everydayers. Appreciate you stopping in. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up. Let us know you stopped by. And if you're new to the program, subscribe. Hang out with us every day as we break down every team in the NFL on YouTube and anywhere you listen to your podcasts. And we're talking draft grades in the AFC, going to the North, team by team, division by division, talking every player selected in the 2025 NFL Draft. And some clues here to why the Ravens drafted themselves the 6th round kicker in Tyler Loop, because they were, and probably strategically smart for them not to let the entire world know that they were going to be looking at one of these kickers in the draft, and waited till the draft was over before officially releasing Justin Tucker, who's been one of the best kickers of all time. They released a statement that talked about him as a player and didn't talk about anything off the field there, which is clearly one of the biggest reasons why he is no longer a Baltimore Raven, Matt.
Yeah, so a lot to unpack here. I don't want to dig too far into it, but I think Justin Tucker is the best kicker of all time and is one of the very, very, very few specialist returners, punter, kicker that I would vote for the Hall of Fame. I think he is worthy. He deserves a bust in the Hall of Fame. Now, remember, the pro football, it's not the NFL, Hall of Fame supposedly doesn't care about character things. It's only on the field. And so what is looming with him should not hurt his case with that. But he's coming off a bad year.
Yeah.
He's old. And in the world of kickers, as you would expect, he's expensive. So I think his job was in jeopardy before all this stuff. I didn't know. I said this in like week 10, week 12. Trust me, we talk a lot of Ravens on my Steelers show. That I don't know that Tucker will be back before I heard about any of these allegations. This will sound very black and goldish because they're the big rival. But I will tell you, and this is meant as a compliment, the Ravens are the most media savvy team in the entire league. Like, they always get good draft grades, Mel's in their back pocket, things like that. They're really wise about the media stuff. And part of me wonders, and people around here wonder, have they known about this for longer than the last month or two? And now that he's just a very convenient coincidence that his really bad year when he's looking old and not worth the salary cap is when it all comes out and they can move on from him. Because I thought it was going to be really sticky to move on from him week 10, week 12. This guy's going to get his number retired. He's a legend. You can't cut Justin Tucker. But now you can cut Justin Tucker,
Yeah, it makes that a lot easier if they were thinking about doing that anyway. And
that's some tinfoil hat Steeler stuff. Don't get me wrong. But,
Well, this isn't the first off-field thing with Tucker. There was something else a few years ago, wasn't there?
I think so. And I'll just tell you, a lot of people that are knowledgeable on the subject that I trust have thought there's things for a while.
Yeah.
More than just the last couple months.
So Justin Tucker, no longer a Baltimore Raven. Tyler Loop, 6th round selection, a kicker out of the University of Arizona, highest field goal percentage in Arizona football history, and he made a program record 62-yard field goal as well. So if he turns out anything like Justin Tucker, they're going to be very happy with Tyler Loop, the new presumable kicker for the Baltimore Ravens with the 6th round selection. Do you have any deep film notes on Tyler Loop?
Well, sort of. I know nothing about the guy. He could walk right past me. He might be brown, yellow, green, purple. I don't know. I don't even know what he looks like or if he's right-footed, left-footed, how big he is. But I did really learn this the year that I was with the Browns. We had Phil Dawson as our kicker, who was really, really good, but he was really old. So we were starting to scout kickers. He ended up lasting like 8 more years after we left. But when we were really starting to scout kickers, but we pretty much made it a rule that I need to find a kicker that's kicked in bad weather. And University of Arizona, if you're going to Baltimore and you got to win the AFC Championship in Buffalo, or Pittsburgh's a real place tough to kick, Cleveland's awful, like that would worry me. And I assume they've turned that leaf over, but that would worry me. He's from Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona. What? I don't even know what conference Arizona's in anymore. Did he play any bad weather? Because like given the old
right.
In too many bad weather spots. Maybe Oregon.
Maybe someone has that answer. I'm not going to do the homework, but the fact that he went to Arizona at least last year, I don't love.
I'm not either. In fact, I think we've talked about kickers too much on today's episode. Let's get to the rest of the draft for the Baltimore Ravens. In the first round, it is Georgia safety Malachi Starks. Round 2 coming back with, speaking of off-field stuff, Mike Green. There's a reason he was there for the Baltimore Ravens with the 27th pick in round 2, not round 1. Phenomenal value for what the player is that they're probably going to get in Mike Green there. Emory Jones, offensive tackle out of LSU in round 3, and then kind of went into some sleeper mode, and a lot of sleepers I really like here from the day 3 draft picks, and a whole bunch of day 3 draft picks for the Baltimore Ravens. Round 4, Cal linebacker Teddy Buchanan, a big athletic. Carson Vincent, another big athletic, sort of raw developmental offensive tackle out of Alabama A&M. Bilal Kone, Western Michigan cornerback. Stop me if you heard this one. Big, athletic, raw, development guy there. Loop in the 6th round. 4 6th-round picks. LeJontay Webster out of Colorado, wide receiver. Aeneas Peebles, interior pass rusher out of Virginia Tech. Robert Longerbeam, Rutgers corner in round 6 to finish up their 4th 6th-round selection. And then in round 7, Garrett Dillinger out of LSU, offensive guard. Teammate of their 3rd-rounder, Emory Jones. So a nice big draft class. Some safe picks, some sleeper picks, and then some boomer bust selections there. And so all in all, I think it's a really good draft class.
I do too. And they're the masters of the comp game and just making a lot of picks, and they do it well. And they let the draft fall to them. They make no bones about it. Green easily could have been a mid-first round pick. There's no convictions out there, but I bet owners felt a lot more comfortable saying he's our 2nd pick, not our 1st pick.
Yep.
It fills a big need. Starks makes Hamilton. I think you get better almost at 2 places there. Hamilton had to play so much deep middle in the second half of the season because they had so many coverage busts that now he can be the condor roaming around the line of scrimmage and put Starks as the safety blanket. That's wonderful. I thought guard was their weakest starting spot last year. And you get the 2 LSU dudes. Jones, I think, projects to guard is the best move for him. And I think Vincent will also be worked at guard. So even if you get 1 starter out of that group, I think that's phenomenal. And then a lot of, 6th and 7th round sleepers, as you mentioned. Kone, I think, really gained some steam. It probably because a lot of us were just late to the party because he's a Western Michigan corner.
Right.
Peebles is undersized, but he makes plays and gets upfield. And I think Longerbeam is a good football player. Like I thought he should have went in the 4th.
B+, I think, is what I'm going to grade this class. I think they got phenomenal depth. I think they got multiple starters. And when you're drafting late in the 1st round, to be able to pull Starks, who's a very safe pick, I think, and is going to be a very nice player for a long time and complementary to what they already have in Hamilton at safety. And then obviously just as a pass rusher, Mike Green, what he could do, even if he's rotational to start his career, that's a phenomenal get there. And so I like it. B+ for the Baltimore.
I'm going A-, which might be the biggest grade I've given out so far. I think there's some star power. There's addressing needs. And I think people know I love when people take extra offensive linemen. They drafted 3, 2 of which can room together in Baltimore from LSU, and they made a lot of picks. So that checks a lot of my boxes,
It is an A-. It is an A draft. A-. Am I grading too hard? A-. I'm with you. Talk me into it. I'm gonna bump it up to that A. And I think it's did we give Washington an A- as well?
They were B+ for me, but I like what they did too.
So not too many A drafts. Eric DaCosta just doing a phenomenal job for the Baltimore Ravens. Love listening to him speak about the draft, and he's much more candid than a lot of GMs, which I think just speaks to how comfortable he is, and how comfortable he is with his job and his job security, and such a smart dude, and was trained by the best before him as well. So there's a reason that they've got that lineage, and they're so good there in Baltimore. So phenomenal job again, I think, for the Baltimore Ravens. And there's a reason why they're a really good team year in, year out.
100%. Yeah, they did a nice job. I love how their front office operates.
Yep. Let's move on to the Cincinnati Bengals next. We got the Cleveland Browns and your Pittsburgh Steelers 2025 NFL draft grades. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. NBA playoffs are here and it's flying high already. A lot of fun series happening, and they're in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action than with FanDuel, and it makes it easy to get in the game before tip-off, live, after tip-off, with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. And what would it look like to combine those live prop bets mid-game based on how the action starts to unfold? Maybe it looks a little bit different than you thought going into a game. And how about $200 in bonus bets to add the excitement if your first $5 bet hits? That's right. New FanDuel customers. It's a perfect time to sign up because right now head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. And if it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. So make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Moving on to the Cincinnati Bengals draft, and they obviously had a lot of needs on the defensive line. They've got to figure out what they're doing after paying all the offensive stars that they have, and try to address those needs on the defensive side of the ball early. Not a big draft class, 6 selections here, no 7th rounder. They didn't move around. They never do. They drafted with the 17th pick in every one of the rounds that they drafted
Right.
in. And it started with Shamar Stewart, like one of the most boomer bust prospects in this class. Shamar Stewart, defensive end out of Texas A&M. Demetrius Knight, linebacker out of South Carolina in round 2. Guard from Georgia, Dylan Fairchild in round 3. Round 4 was Clemson linebacker Barrett Carter, so doubling up on linebackers with a lot of athleticism and a high upside for both of those players. I think both of them a little light on the instincts department from what I'm seeing on the field when I was doing my tape study on those guys. Jalen Rivers, Miami guard, so doubling up on linebackers, doubling up on guards. Then Taj Brooks, Texas Tech running back in round 6, which might have been my favorite selection.
It's definitely my favorite selection, and I'm going to make sure I get him in all my dynasty leagues. I'm a fan. I think he will play early and often. So Taj Brooks is a sleeper to me going in and falls into a good spot. So great pick there. Sort of like the Ravens, that I thought guard was really the only real weakness on the offense. The whole defense is a mess, but I think the offense only needed guards. And with the O-line tax, so many teams avoided it, and we'll talk about the Browns here in a minute. I'm going to lose my mind that they didn't take an offensive lineman. So at least the Bengals did bring in O-line bodies, 2 guys that I'm pretty fond of. But I don't like the other picks that much at all, to be honest with you. I joked leading up to the draft that if Shamar Stewart ended up with the Falcons, he would never have a sack in the NFL. If he ended up with the Eagles, he would turn into Reggie White.
Yeah.
And I think this is a lot closer to him falling to the Falcons. I mean, they have not developed talent well at all on defense. And I think that's why their defensive coordinator got fired, whether it's his fault or not. But I don't have high hopes that Stewart's going to hit his high ceiling. And I don't even know his ceiling's as high as people think in terms of like bending the edge.
Yeah.
I thought this was, you said that too. I've stole that from you, to be honest with you, you know.
You see his feet kind of slip out from under him sometimes.
Yeah.
The quarterback or the running back is always kind of next to him instead of in front of him, you know. And I just think he lacks some biomechanical movement skills, and there's a reason why he only had 1.5 sacks. I don't think it's super fluky, but he's got ridiculous get off. So I think the way you use him, maybe how he can develop some of his skills and maybe even slow down. You know, so like Landon Jackson out of Arkansas, really stiff, segmented, like when he rushes, it looks awful, right? But he does this thing where he knows that about himself, and he bursts, and he's, you know, another very linear, bursty athlete. He bursts out of his stance, but he kind of slows down and stops, turns, and then bursts again in the direction he needs to go. Shamar Stewart might need to take that approach where just don't go a billion miles an hour, slow down, then maybe you can use that burst to finish the play instead of using it all at the beginning and then not being in a good spot to finish. So
you've been hanging out with that Niners D-line coach.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like, you look at this draft and talked about it with Stewart. I think we talked about it with Demetrius Knight and Barrett Carter. Barrett Carter was a big time recruit, and he kind of just never put it all together at Clemson. Like, you're putting all of your trust in the development of how good the coaching staff can develop them, and that's not been the greatest. But you brought in a new coach, so maybe that's going to change in Cincinnati.
Right. They've been drafting defense like crazy and haven't developed any of them. Real quick on the linebackers. I thought Knight was way too early. And yes, it was a need, but I didn't think it was a double down need, especially if you thought Knight was this superstar to take in the middle of the second round, which I don't. So didn't love that part either. This is kind of a C- draft for me.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. This could potentially be a big bust of a draft, but there's a lot of talent there. And, probably one of those guys ends up hitting and it starts to, figure it out and plays a lot better in the NFL maybe than in college, just because of all the athletic ability. And do they find a starting guard out of it? So from that standpoint, I'm not going to completely crush it, but yeah, C-, that feels about right. They drafted a lot of the guys I just wasn't as high on. And I think with Knight, it was just not a great linebacker class. And I think the 49ers did this in the third round when they drafted Nick Martin, who's a prospect I liked. And I kind of liked Martin as much or more than Barrett Carter and Demetrius Knight.
Definitely.
But it wasn't a good class, but you need a linebacker.
The rough spot to be in.
Draft the best guy that's there because it's a need. And I think it's a forced need in a lot of cases. And to be honest with you, I like Barrett Carter in round 4 better than Demetrius Knight in round 2, even though I liked Knight a little bit better as a prospect. But there just wasn't a lot of okay, this guy is the right height, weight, speed to start at linebacker in the NFL. There just wasn't a lot of those guys. So I think you had to kind of force that pick.
Yeah. I mean, they only addressed 4 positions.
But the Cleveland Browns draft, it started with a trade down. The biggest shakeup on draft night was the trade down with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jags went up to get Travis Hunter. Cleveland adds a whole bunch of picks. Generally, I love that for a trade down team. I was a big fan of Mason Graham. I think I like Mason Graham a little bit more than you. I think the tape is really good. I think he's got a high motor, leverage monster. I think he's going to be a really good player in the NFL. Is he going to be a perennial all-pro? I'm not sure, but they added picks. And so I'm in on that. They did pass on, you dream about what Travis Hunter could be, but I think they had to make that move and take that trade down. So I like that aspect, and I'm going to give them credit for that. And you get that extra first round pick in Cleveland. Then you got Carson Schlesinger, extra second round pick, by the way, as well, which they used on a running back, which I don't love. And Quinshon Judkins, local Ohio State guy, running back in round 2, right behind Carson Schlesinger, start round 2, linebacker out of UCLA, who I do like a lot. Harold Fannin, interesting prospect. I think this is the right spot for him, round 3, tight end out of Bowling Green. Then the quarterback stuff. Dylan Gabriel, who I was not a fan of at all at the end of round 3, but they came back with Shedeur Sanders to finish off their draft in round 5. They had no more picks after that, and then drafted another running back as well, Dylan Sampson, in between those 2 quarterbacks in round 4. So just a kind of a strange draft that was all over the place for the Cleveland Browns. What are your thoughts on this draft?
I've talked it to death, but it's one of my least favorite drafts in the entire league in terms of what you did with your assets, especially after going 3 years basically without any draft picks. And I don't mind trading away from Hunter. That might go down as like the Julio Jones trade, though. I mean, I think that's a possibility, but I understood it. And I understood the Graham pick after day 1. Culture builder. It's a need. High floor. I would have taken Membo instead at 5, but okay, I get it. And frankly, there aren't any of these players where I'm like, ugh, I don't like this guy. I just hate the philosophy after taking Graham, because to leave this draft without any kind of edge presence, and we talked a lot about imagine Carter on the opposite side of Myles Garrett, boy, that'd be really hard to play against. And we even talked about it in Pittsburgh. I would rather they took Hunter than Carter, because I don't want to have to defend those 2 edge guys. They didn't take one in a really rich edge class, premium position. But where I can't lose my mind enough about is 0 offensive linemen taken with all the picks they had. And I think 4, I'm certain 3 of their aging offensive linemen are free agents after this year. And you're trying to build a nest for next year's quarterback. You know, you take 2 quarterbacks, 2 running backs, a backup tight end, and no edge and no O-line. I hate that. And I do like the players. Judkins lands anywhere else, great. Sampson's a sidekick to anyone else, great. But you ignored. I would never team build this way, never.
Yeah, and you already gave up a ton of value by the trade down by drafting a running back really high. And
yeah,
Judkins
right.
is a nice prospect, but you drafted him at like he has to bump his head on the ceiling for that pick to make any kind of sense. And even still, I'm not like the reason you don't draft Judkins in the second round is because you can get Sampson in the 4th round.
Exactly, right.
You don't draft Judkins in the second round, high in the second round, in the 30s, because you can get Taj Brooks in the 6th round, right? Like that. That's why. And so they gave up a lot of that value with the trade down by going with the second round running back, which for them was probably like, oh, we got free money now, let's use it on a running back. And for me, it's the opposite. It's like, no, don't give away that free money. What's the point of the trade down then? You know, might as well stuck with Hunter. So we'll see what happens with the 1st round pick next year. And then of course Shedeur Sanders, who's like for all what
I think owner told him to take Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah,
and said you have to take him now.
But he's better than Dylan Gabriel.
Right.
Like,
that might be my favorite pick for
Dylan Gabriel.
Maybe you found a starting quarterback in the 5th round. Maybe.
I mean, Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd was a throwaway pick anyway. He's not going to be a starting NFL quarterback. Like, what are you doing?
You have 4 guys that have to make the roster now too. I mean, Pickett's going to make the roster. Flacco's probably the opening day starter. That's makes no sense to me. With the extra 1st round pick in your bag to take one next year, the Gabriel pick's really dumb to me.
So turn the Judkins pick into an offensive lineman, and then it starts to, and then just take Shedeur in the 3rd. And then have another extra pick, or take a different player in the 3rd since Shedeur fell to the 5th. And so
give me one edge at least, and then it 2 linemen.
Really nice draft for me, but instead it kind of just left me like, what? It's kind of scratching my head. But they got some good players. Like Graham's gonna be a long-term starter. Schwarzenegger's gonna be a long-term starter. Fannon's an interesting player, and I don't know what he's gonna end up being because he's such an oddball prospect, but he might be someone who's a target hog in that offense in a big slot role. So again, and I like
I get each player fit. I just. He ignored the things that are hard to find with the draft when you had the resources to get what's hard to find.
Very strange draft. An S for strange is what my grade is for the.
This is a D for me.
I'm gonna go C.
Because I'm looking at it not what you brought in, but what cards were dealt to you and how you handled the aces in your hand. You know,
and you hope that Travis Hunter doesn't go on to be a Hall of Famer because then you're really screwed up.
And I think he's really good. Oh, by the way,
And you got that extra 1st rounder, so maybe you find your own Hall of Famer next year in the 1st round as well. And who knows, maybe it's another quarterback. That's the other part of it.
Well, that's the thing, right? I want to build the nest for that guy.
Are you even done at quarterback still? And you're up in the air. Anyway, we got to move on to the Pittsburgh Steelers to finish up the AFC North 2025 NFL draft grades next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson brought to you by Skylight Calendar. And say goodbye to sticky notes, scribbled plans on the fridge, and overlapping calendar invites. The Skylight Calendar is here to bring clarity to the chaos and help families stay organized without the stress. This sleek digital display syncs with your existing calendars, Google, Apple, Outlook, and more, making it simple to track appointments, practices, dinners, all the reminders, all in one easy-to-see place. And what would it mean to eliminate the I don't know excuse from your family's routine? Could you assign everyone their own color? Finally, solving who does what, who's got what here, clear up all that confusion in the household. And, some households may be more confused than the others, depending on how many you've got in your household. And it's a beautiful HD 15-inch display. Right now, Skylight is offering our listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendars by going to skylightcal.com/NFL. Go to skylightcal.com/NFL for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. That's skylightcal.com/NFL. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers draft. And there was a lack of quarterbacks early for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And you feel like there's some imminence to Aaron Rodgers coming to town, which is probably why they waited till round 6 to address it with Will Howard out of Ohio State. They started with defensive tackle out of Oregon, Derek Harmon. You were in on that, Matt. That was a defensive interior defensive line pick all the way for the Steelers in this draft. Caleb Johnson, running back out of Iowa, phenomenal fit in round 3. No second-round pick. That went to Seattle for DK Metcalf. Jack Sawyer, a try-hard, high-motor Ohio State edge in round 4. Yaye Black. Yaye Black, Iowa defensive tackle in round 5. Really utilizing the depth of that defensive tackle class. Will Howard, quarterback from Ohio State in round 6. 2 7th-rounders, Carson Bruner, Washington linebacker, and Dante Kent, Central Michigan cornerback. And I don't know much about Bruner and Kent. Bruner's name sounds familiar.
That's all you need to know. It's the Connor Hayward pick. He's Mark Bruner's son. Mark Bruner is a former first-round pick of the Steelers, tight end. He was a really good player. And he is a scout in the department. He was walking around there. He went to Washington as well. Bruner is only a special teams player that I'm sure they could have got as an undrafted free agent to come with dad, but whatever. That's something they do all the time. Yep. The Watts, Porter, Hayward, fine, whatever. But I don't think he's going to play on defense. They also got DK Metcalf in the second round, which if we're going to, give the Commanders grade based on that stuff, or Geno, I think that's huge. They've been looking for a receiver for a long time. Harmon was a very predictable pick to me, and then they doubled down on D-line. They got rid of Ogunjobi. Cam's getting up in age. Harmon is the perfect guy to be groomed by Cam Hayward with Benton. Keep a strength to strength. Johnson, they adore as an outside zone runner, and we're just like keeping their fingers crossed to no end that he would fall to that third pick, and he did. So I like that quite a bit. He'll play a lot. He's a great compliment to Warren. I kind of hate the Jack Sawyer pick. I mean, he's the 4th edge on the team. I don't think he's a very good athlete, and I don't quite understand that. But I love the Howard pick that late. I mean, we were just talking about Gabriel in the 3rd round. I think I'd rather Will Howard. You know what I mean? And Yaya Black is going to be a space eater, free your linebackers guy up. And Dante Kent has some traits. Tiny school, they really know the MAC guys extremely well. He's also has return skills, gunner. Maybe he can play slot. Maybe he can play outside. Whatever. I mean, special. And
Harmon's going to play more of that the big end role, right?
Like I mean, he's the Aaron Smith 3-4. Yeah. And compete with Benton and Hayward for inside stuff on nickel and dime.
Gotcha. Love it. Love that fit there. This is a really good draft.
Yeah, it's great fit.
Rock solid Steelers draft. I don't know about the Bruner pick, but it was
all right. That makes everybody happy. Right.
Okay.
And Mark Bruner's like the nicest human being on the planet, and but I'm sure you could have got him as an undrafted free agent. But whatever.
And I just love the draft strategy of it, right? You got a really good running back. You didn't have to spend a top 50 pick on him. You got him, barely
run the ball a lot.
100 picks, and Caleb Johnson. You utilize the depth of the defensive tackle class to get one late in round 1 and then come back again and double dip in round 5. Love that. You utilize the depth of the quarterback class, hold your water, didn't draft the guy early, ended up with Will Howard in round 6, which is phenomenal value, even if he's just a, long-term backup type quarterback, which is what you project he probably is. I'm okay with Jack Sawyer where they got him. Like,
I laughed at him being a round 2 pick. They got him
right. He just wasn't athletically gifted enough to be a second round guy. But late round 4, he's going to give it everything he's got out there. I don't know about his athleticism as like a stand up sort of outside linebacker / edge guy, but late round.
I can tell you exactly what they're thinking on that is. Okay. It's the same reason they traded for Preston Smith at the trade deadline is we play the Ravens twice a year. We need a big edge setter. That's not Herbig. And if heaven forbid Watt or Highsmith were to miss time, we love Herbig, but we don't want him being a full-time player because he's only like 235 pounds. So they needed a big guy as a complement for him and / special teams.
Love it. So there you go.
So, I mean, it makes some sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. It makes some sense. The class doesn't wow me, but I think it's solid. We've got a lot of contributors, potentially a couple starters there in Harmon and Johnson. Is there could Caleb Johnson steal that job away from Warren, or is Warren entrenched?
Yeah. I actually tweeted this out that Warren has never received 50% of the carries in any game of his career. So that's how they want to use him. They want him to be like a 40% guy, third downs, but they definitely trust him. He's also a free agent at the end of the year too. So I think Johnson by week 10 or so is the top dog. Najee was a terrible fit for this outside zone. He has no vision whatsoever and no burst. So they square peg in a round hole where Johnson's the total opposite. And two Ohio State guys, they have such great Ohio State connections. It's like a 3-hour ride from here. Cam Hayward went there. Dick LeBeau went there. They know these guys left and right. 3 Iowa guys when you factor in their top undrafted free agent and their head coach, Kirk Ferentz, grew up like 5 minutes from where I'm sitting. Like there's all kinds of local connections that the Steelers always have,
Solid draft. What's the letter grade for you?
I'm including DK, so I'm going to give it a B+.
B, yeah.
I mean, they needed a receiver bad.
Yeah, it's in the B range. They got themselves a receiver. As far as short term, they weren't going to probably get a better receiver late round 2 than what DK Metcalf is going to give them, and clearly they needed something. And for now, Pickens is still around. Are they still kicking around that trade idea, or was that like, if they offer blank, we'll do it, but we're not trying to sell him necessarily?
I think there's a lot of discussions. I just think that the offers came in too low. If they can have those two giants on the outside, and they think they're getting Aaron Rodgers, by the way.
Yeah, Rodgers is coming to town. He has to, or else.
Yeah. Otherwise, this all goes out the window. But
yeah, exactly.
So I can basically tell you as a fact that they didn't dislike Shedeur Sanders, but they didn't want Rodgers and Shedeur in the same quarterback room, which I can 100% understand.
That's too much. That's like a made for TV,
right? Like that's good for us. We're good on that.
My theory is that Rodgers just needs to do all his dark retreat stuff and doesn't want to do what happened last year, and like, Rodgers isn't here for OTAs and all that, so he's waiting for that to be done and then show up and just be all right. Now I'm here and I'm in.
That's what I think is too. I'm not sure what I think. They have a handshake deal and I guess Tomlin and him text every day, and everybody else, and he's older and he wants to enjoy his off season for a little while.
There you go.
Like, okay,
all right.
We'll roll back,
That is the 2025 AFC North. Let us know what you think at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL. Get your mailbag questions in for this week. Drop a comment on YouTube. Subscribe while you're there. And Matt and I will be back tomorrow going to the AFC South right here. Peacock and Williamson.